Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review and discussion of the finale episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Now there may be spoilers throughout this review for all of the previous episodes within the series and also episodes for The Mandalorian as well, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now just to quickly recap over the previous episode, we saw Mando visit the planet where Grogu was being trained by Luke. He hands over the Beskar armor to Ahsoka, who gives it to Luke, who ultimately presents Grogu with the choice of either staying with him to carry on with his Jedi training or taking the Beskar armor and reuniting with Mando. We saw the emergence of Cad Bane walking into Freetown and shooting down the Marshal. Bane has been employed by the Pike Syndicate to ensure that nobody else gets involved within their operations and the ongoing conflict against Boba Fett. Now there's been so much hype and debate going into this finale, especially following the previous two episodes, the criticism being that Boba Fett's story was very much being sidelined in favour of focus on far more franchise characters such as the Mandalorian, Grogu, Ahsoka and of course Luke. So would the finale shift the focus back to Boba Fett himself and give him a worthy conclusion to his own series? Well, the answer is really both yes and no, but I would say more in a majority of yes. Now, first of all, I will always say for any season that the finale episode should always be the most exciting, the most spectacular or impactful of the entire series, whilst also wrapping up all of the story arcs throughout the season. So on that basis, this finale very much did its job, giving absolute balls to the ball action and spectacle. While most episodes throughout the series seem to have been on a much more of a smaller scale and budget, the money was clearly saved for this episode and it clearly shows all the way throughout. We had some great effects, some great tension and good choreographed fight scenes, some cool character moments, very much all on a cinematic level. So I think in terms of just pure entertainment, I don't think you can really complain too much about this overall episode. The story itself was essentially an all-out battle with Boba's forces taking out the Pike Syndicates. Now Boba of course was far more involved in this episode, having far more dialogue and far more action as opposed to the previous two installments. But there were also still times when he disappeared from the action and the focus kept going back to both Mandalorian and Grogu, which really has been a problematic issue, as I mentioned before, throughout this entire series, let alone just this episode. I really liked Cad Bane throughout this entire episode. He had so much presence in every scene that was in. There was a real sense of suspense and tension whenever he showed up. We had multiple scenes when he talks to the Syndicate about discussing the various strategy, but we also had the revelation that it was actually the Pike Syndicate that killed the Tusken Raiders and that it wasn't Cad Bane himself. I absolutely loved the first encounter with Bane and Boba, again giving off all of those classic western tones. I loved all of the direction and the atmosphere and all of the close-ups between both characters, again very much in the same style as those classic Sergio Leone westerns, and I think it really shows that Bane really should have been the series antagonist from the start. His dynamic with Boba Fett really should have been the focal point throughout the entire season, though to be fair I still think he's made a good enough impact within these last couple of episodes. So we then talk about what everybody was anticipating going into this episode. That was of course the return from Grogu. He ultimately decided to choose the armor and reunite with Mando, as I think we all predicted. Now one stupid element within this episode was the fact that Grogu arrived by flying the X-Wing himself on his own. And I really watched this part of the episode and I really thought, are they really joking us here? Because are you telling me that Grogu on his own was able to fly the X-Wing, only being accompanied by R2? When we looked inside the cockpit, Grogu could barely reach the controls within the ship himself, let alone fly the thing. And who exactly taught him to fly the X-Wing? When we went back to the previous episode, all we saw was Luke getting Grogu to access his previous memories and getting to manipulate and evade certain projectiles. There was no X-Wing training at all. And why would Luke train him to fly an X-Wing? At this point, there's no reason for him to do that. So it absolutely made no sense that Grogu would arrive on his own within the X-Wing. Surely either Luke or Ahsoka should have been there alongside him. Now I understand that because of the huge CGI requirements that it couldn't be Luke, but surely then it should have been Ahsoka. Now I think the reason they did this is because having Luke or Ahsoka arriving alongside Grogu and then eventually joining the battle against the Pikes would have tipped the scales too much in the hero's favour. Having two of the most powerful Jedi alongside them, the battle itself probably would have been over in about 5 minutes. So I do understand from a narrative point of view why they didn't accompany Ahsoka or Luke with Grogu, but it just didn't make sense putting Grogu in the X-Wing on his own. What if somebody attacked him whilst he was in the ship? He wouldn't have been able to defend himself. So it didn't make sense. We then go on to the main battle after Fett agrees to stay within the city and protect the Mos Espa citizens. And as I mentioned before, this battle scene was absolutely fantastic. Everybody involved had their own standout moments. I think one of the biggest moments was seeing Boba and Mando in unison together. We saw them in the earlier parts of the episode, coming under heavy fire from all of the Pikes, taking lots of hits, protected by the armour of course, and this was just a great moment seeing two of these great characters alongside each other. Again, something that I think we should have seen far more in terms of their interaction throughout the entire series. We had some great manoeuvres, particularly from Boba Fett when he was using all of his various weapons and guns. There was that great sequence where he used his knee shots to take out certain Pikes. We had another great scene when they were both on their jetpacks, flying through the air, taking out all of the Pikes. So great sequences and great interaction between the two characters. Now, we did spend a good amount of time with both the Vesper biker gang and the fighters from the Freetown who joined the battle later on after the Marshal had been taken down by Cad Bane. Now, at first, it's been seemingly confirmed that he is actually dead. Now, to be honest, we probably spent too much time within these characters as they were constantly running around talking strategies, and to be honest, the strategies that they were suggesting weren't really that too smart. And I think overall, this took away focus from Boba Fett, and it almost felt as if they were trying to set up some of these characters for any future series, so it wouldn't surprise me in later on down the line as we get more future Star Wars content if we see some of these characters showing up later on within the franchise. Now, we continued to up the ante even more with the emergence of these huge hulking attack droids protected by these blue energy shields, trapping the heroes into a corner. Again, we were full of great visuals and great tension, and they really seemed an unbeatable force at this stage. Eventually, Grogu had come to the battle alongside Pedimoto, the mechanic that we'd seen in the previous episodes. So again, this was another point of contention for me, because why exactly would she take him there? I understand that Grogu may have indicated that he wanted to be reunited with Mando, but at the same time he would have been far safer at the base, and I'm not too sure Mando would have been happy had she taken him to the battle and then something happened to Grogu. He would have much preferred if she kept him safe away from danger. So that was another issue that I pointed out when watching this episode. But to be fair, we expected this to happen because they had to give Grogu his stand-up moment within the conflict. And in this case, he had two. The first being when he takes out one part of the attack droid that was attacking Mando. To be honest, I was glad that they didn't overpower Grogu with his force abilities. I was very much worried that during the conflict, everybody would be on the verge of death and then Grogu would step out in the center and take out all of the forces single-handedly. Again, that would make sense in terms of the amount of training that we've seen him gain so far. His force abilities are very much in their infancy, so it wouldn't have made much sense if all of a sudden he exhibited this truly all-conquering power, taking everybody out. So I'm glad that they managed the power scaling within the character. But to be honest, I didn't feel that we really needed two Grogu moments. The second one, of course, coming right at the end of the conflict, where he takes down the Rancor monster who was being carried around by Boba Fett later on within the battle. That was a really cool scene as well. So I think giving Grogu two moments really, again, took away the focus from Boba Fett. I don't think you needed both sequences showing how his abilities are within the Force. We're going to get far more of that within The Mandalorian Season 3. So I think one scene with Grogu was enough overall. We didn't need two. I did enjoy the final confrontation between Fett and Bane. I think it was satisfactory overall. We see eventually that Fett was able to take him down and stab him. We assume that he's dead, but it wouldn't surprise me if he lives on in the future. We all know how much Dave Filoni has been very eager to integrate the animated characters from the Clone Wars series into live action, so it really feels a bit of a waste if we've only bring back Cad Bane for 2 episodes and then killing him off. As I mentioned before, he has made a significant amount of impact throughout these 2 episodes, so it really wouldn't surprise me if he's resuscitated later on down the line and then brought back for a future series. And as we saw with the end credits of this episode, we saw that the Marshal was being revived in the tank, so it wouldn't surprise me if we saw the same sequence play out for Cad Bane as well. I just think he's too much of a villain to be thrown away in just these 2 episodes. So we continue from the story. After the great battle has been concluded, Fennec takes down the Syndicate, and that was another big issue for me because this clearly should have been Fett's moment to get revenge on the Syndicate for killing the Tusken Raiders. It very much would have been a cyclical moment, very much a moment of closure, given the fact that we spent the first couple of episodes concentrating on Boba's connection to the Raiders, so having him gain the ultimate revenge for the murder would have been a very satisfying experience and moment for the character. But once again, it shows that too many times the moment or the sequence or the focus has been taken away from Boba Fett in expense or in exchange for other characters. Now, I've always liked Ming-Na Wen as an actress just in general, and I think in her role as Fennec Shand, I think she's been very good, and she's actually been far more involved, especially in these last couple of episodes, and she was very prominent throughout this battle scene. But I just think this should have been Boba's moment, as I mentioned before. a real kind of capping off into his overall narrative arc throughout this particular story. So the episode ended as Boba collates together all of his heroes, the Vesper gang and Fennec Sand as well, really establishing the fact now that he is indeed the ruler of Tatooine. So happy endings all around. And then we ended the episode with seeing Mando and Grogu zooming off in light speed to newer adventures, very much bringing back the Mandalorian to its original status quo. Now, I do have some issues with that, but I will discuss that in another video. So in terms of this finale, I think overall for me, it was very satisfactory, very spectacular. They did keep the focus on the conflict within the story. That was absolutely the right choice. There were no more member berries in terms of Star Wars franchise characters. There was no Han Solo as what the internet rumours were speculating, no allusions to Thrawn or the Ahsoka series. Now, some fans might be disappointed by that there were no expansions to the larger universe, but this is Boba Fett's story, and I think there's already been an issue by many who have seen this far more as a set up for the Mandalorian Season 3 rather than the Boba Fett series itself. So I was very glad that we didn't get any more potential setups for any potential continuations with the franchise overall. So I think in terms of this finale as well, while Boba Fett had some cool scenes, he just didn't feel like he was primarily the main focal point throughout the episode, which is really, as I mentioned before, a problem of the entire series itself. And when we reflect on the series, was it really an essential entry within the Star Wars franchise? I'd probably have to say no. I don't think they did real justice to Boba Fett. For many Star Wars fans, he is one of the most iconic characters, and I just don't think they were really fully invested. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I think the Book of Boba Fett is really far more of a stopgap and a setup for The Mandalorian Season 3. And I just think going forward, if Disney is going to continue to branch out that universe and bring back all of these iconic characters, I think they really need to make sure that they are fully invested in them before giving them their own series. Would it have hurt if Boba Fett had just been far more of a recurring character within The Mandalorian, having his own various standout installments and working alongside the various other established characters? That might have been the more preferred option to go, as I just feel many fans who were very much into Boba Fett would have been overall disappointed in feeling that their favourite character has in many ways been nerfed or disrespected throughout this entire series, and I just hope they don't adopt the same tactic for the Ahsoka series, as that's one show that I'm really invested to see what happens in terms of that particular storyline. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of the Book of Boba Fett, the season finale. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Overall, did you feel that this conclusion done real justice to the character overall, or did you think there were some issues? Did you think there was still too much focus on both the Mandalorian and Grogu? Did you think the battle sequence went on for far too long? I've heard some criticisms on social media that essentially this was one big large fight and there wasn't too much in terms of development or storyline. That could be a criticism I could probably agree with, but let me know if you do have that same sentiment within the comments. I may do an overall season review within the show if I've got time, and may provide some additional commentary regarding The Mandalorian and indeed the Star Wars franchise in general, as there's been some recent debate regarding where the franchise is heading in terms of whether it will indeed link back to the sequel trilogy, and I know a lot of fans are unhappy about that, so I may provide more debate and discussion if I have the time as well. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.